Hi everyone, welcome to Padikapeon, the Greek-Ukrainian podcast. I am your host Ilya.
Українці і греки.
From simply hanging on.
Πατρίδα, ελευθερία, δημοκρατία. Μην σιωπήσετε. Ακολουθήστε το δρόμο της καρδιάς. Βοηθήστε όπως μπορεί ο καθένας τους Ουκρανούς.
In this podcast, we have here with us Mykhailo Lavrovskyi. Mykhailo is a volunteer of the Hospitallers Battalion, fighting for Ukraine since day one. He is the co-founder of the NGO Ukrainian Students for Liberty, Ukrainsky Studenti za Svobodu, and he is the head of the NGO Institute of Economic Leadership, Institute Ekonomitsnoyo Liderskva. Sorry for butchering the pronunciation. And it's great to have him. I know Mykhailo very briefly when I was in Students for Liberty in Greece. I left the organization because I disagreed, but I'm very happy that they help, and actually they have helped me to volunteer as well. So I'm very grateful for this. I saw Mykhailo getting interviewed by the Plus Plus podcast of Hromadske, an independent online media platform in Ukraine, and I got a bit jealous. So, Mykhailo, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you. Thank you for your time. I know you are really busy. Firstly, could you please introduce yourself? And let's pause for a moment, and if you could try to remember what you did before the full-scale invasion, and then what do you do now? And we can go deeper into this matter.
Yeah, about myself, you already told a lot. And before the full-scale invasion, I was and still am the CEO of Institute for Economic Leadership. It's one of few free market think tanks in Ukraine that are doing a lot of policy work, trying to make our economy freer, less regulated, and less Soviet, I would say. And when the full-scale invasion started, I, as a lot of Ukrainians, volunteered. First of all, actually, with the help of our friends from Atlas Network, we started doing a lot of work helping just civilians with humanitarian aid, bringing the cars, different supplies. But then after 2 months, I just felt that it was not enough. And that's when I decided to volunteer to Hospitallers. And since then, I am doing the evacuations on the front line. I work as the casevac driver. So we take the wounded and dead from the very front line and deliver them to the next stage of evacuation, which is medevac, which takes them to the hospital. That's basically the general idea of the work I do.
And could you tell us more about the battalion itself? How could you describe the Hospitallers Battalion to someone who hears it for the first time? I hear a lot of awe, a lot of admiration, even adoration from Ukrainians every time this battalion is mentioned. So as if you are the best children of Ukraine, but you could be the worst. So have you here to tell us?
Hospitallers is a pretty unique place because it's not an official army unit. It's more like an NGO which works with the army. So it's 100% volunteers who usually people who have their regular life, regular work, a lot of medics, but also a lot of people from all of the different spheres as myself, just trying to help our cause. And so that's why I think that's quite a unique thing, and especially in terms of the full-scale war, because it's not every day you have, just people being working both in kind of military and plus having their regular civilian lives. That's what makes it unique, and we have 100% volunteer-based organization with no salaries, etc. We're just doing what we do for the sake of Ukraine, I would say.
So the fact that this is an NGO, it has a different legal status than it being part of the army. You don't have salaries. You do this completely as volunteers. And if you get hurt, do you get any assistance from the state?
No, actually not. That's also another thing. The good thing about Hospitallers is that we have our own schedule. We could be on the front line for a month or two, and then we could come back home and do our regular life work. Which, on the contrary to the army, if you are drafted or if you volunteer to regular units, you are there until the victory. Basically, that's also it's a completely other topic in terms of the demobilization, and it's a hard topic right now in Ukraine. But if we're talking about the Hospitallers, that's what makes it unique. But on the contrary, again, to the regular army units, we're not getting paid, and we don't have the guarantees from the state. But the unit itself, in huge thanks of our battalion commander, Yana Zinkevich, who is an amazing person. And we have our own fund, which is also made of the funds that people donated to Hospitallers. And if someone is hurt or killed during our combat duties, we will get paid, or our families will get paid from that fund in case of our death. So, and plus we have, I think, one of the best medical supplies in terms of that. If we are getting hurt, we will be put to the private hospitals, which are pretty good, and we know that our battalion will take care of us.
And how do you become a member of the Hospitallers? Do you just sign up, you volunteer, and you take a training?
It's hard to tell to me because I know I'm just a regular part of the battalion. I'm not in the command or something like that. So I don't know how the process looks like today. But when I joined, it was quite chaotic because, it was the beginning of the war, and I just had my friends who have been in the battalion prior to the full-scale invasion, and I just said that, hey guys, I have the car, I'm a pretty good driver. Could I be a good use to you? Because before that, in the first days of the full-scale invasion, I went to the, this conscription offices and tried to volunteer to the regular army, but it was like just thousands of people being there, and everything was so chaotic. So when I was standing there for 3 days trying to get, and when it was my turn, they just said, okay, have you had any military service before, or do you have any specific skills that could be useful? I said, I could drive, and they said that, okay, we will call you, and they never called me back. So that's why I joined Hospitallers. And when I joined, as I said, it was pretty chaotic. So I just went through this basic medical training for 5 days. And right after that, I went to my first deployment to Avdiivka, actually.
Okay. So why did you choose to be part of this battalion? If the state did not take you, if you went to the army and you became available, why it was not enough for you and you wanted to join the Hospitallers? What were you thinking? It's been almost 3 years now. I just wanted to help, and actively being involved, in some kind of combat duties, and Hospitallers was the place where I got what I wanted. So that's long story short. For Greeks and Europeans, war can be something super far away. Are there any situations you would agree to sharing here to tell people what war is, but not only what war is in general, but what is this kind of war, where the political goal of the opposite side is basically complete erasure of your side, right?
It's funny what you said, that it's far away, because it also used to be so much far away for us. We all live in our bubbles, people in Greece, in Western Europe, in United States, we all live in our bubbles where we have our regular lives and everything, etc. When we think about the war, we're just like, oh, it's not gonna happen because it's only happened somewhere far away. That's what we Ukrainians thought when we saw, something happening in Afghanistan or something like in Iraq or somewhere else, or like in Balkans back in 90s. So it was kind of far away for us. But now we live in this new reality with having full-scale war and having just a war, how we call it right now, since 2014. And it's just our reality. But before 2014, it was hard to just imagine that something like that could happen in our lifetime, because we only heard about the wars, or saw it in some movies about the Second World War, and we saw that it's not gonna happen because we had our problems with Russians, but come on, it's 21st century. It's not like they're gonna attack us or try to wipe out our entire nation. But that's what actually happened. So, and when I talk with my friends from other countries, that's what I share with them, that you shouldn't be so skeptical, because there are so many options what could just get wrong, as with Russia having Putin and building this crazy empire and just deciding one day that, okay, I'm going all in and I'm going to destroy Ukraine. And who said that some crazy guy, some crazy dictator will not be the next president of your neighboring country, and that he will not decide in 5 or 10 years to attack you just because, some crazy historical or just completely made up reasons. And, that's the reality. It's an interesting topic because, it's hard to, when I say that, even like to you or any other people, when you hear something like that, you still think that, but it's Ukraine. It's not like that's going to happen in Greece, or it's not like that's going to happen in Germany or in the United States, because that's what I thought when I spoke with people who've been coming to Ukraine, from Afghanistan, for example. We had a lot of refugees from there. And when we've been talking with them, it's like, guys, it's not going to happen here. We live in Europe and all of that. But the war is here. And I probably think the people who lived through the First World War, through the Second World War, they thought exactly the same, just, the weeks or months or years before that war started. But then the whole world they've been living in just disappeared. So.
Why did this happen? Why did the Russians invade? Can you explain it to us? A lot of people say it's the Russian imperialism, in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. It's such a simple question, but the answer I think would require a few books on historicals and geopolitical reasons. First and foremost, of course, it's history, and Russian not willingness to accept that Ukraine exists as an independent country, because the whole idea of Russian state was kind of, made up from some Rus, Kievan Rus period and all of that, because as we know, Russians before the Peter the First done the reform, it was even called the Muscovy. So they took that, they required something, bigger, with more historical roots. That's why they renamed Muscovy to Russia, to have this, Rus in the name. And they started taking all of the history, not willing to share it with Ukraine and Belarus and this part of the world, just saying that it's specifically this part of the history is specifically Russian, and all of you guys have nothing to do with it, only if you are a part of this bigger picture where the Russia leads it. So I think that's one of the reasons. And plus, 90s were rough for both Ukraine, Russia, and thanks to 90s, Russia had Putin, and Russian society in general was, more willing to accept someone who will, bring this order to this chaotic system. And that's on the contrary with Ukraine, where we may be, less economically developed, but we always choose freedom over this order, whatever that would mean. But in Russian society, it's always order over freedom. So that's why we had, our own issues with oligarchs and all of this, all of the things like that. But at the same time, we had so many presidents during this recent history, and Russia only had, I would say, Putin, because I don't count Medvedev as an independent president. It was only done so Putin could overcome this ban on being the president more than 2 times, and now he doesn't even need to care about that. So as I said, it's such a simple question, but the answer is really hard. And in the end, I think just the last reason why Putin invaded specifically in 2022 is just him realizing that Ukraine is on the no return point. So we will never accept Russia. We will never go back to Russia. And also him realizing that he is quite old. He's going to die soon, and that he needs to do something like really historic as bringing Ukraine back to this Russian world, what they call.
Yeah, but may I ask you, you said Ukraine was reaching the point of no return, but frankly, why did you want democracy? Why did you want institutions? Wasn't it nice, the old days? Why did you want to be part of the European Union?
It's an interesting topic because, I'm quite Eurosceptical in terms of not being the Ukraine being the part of this big European project, but of EU itself, because I come from libertarian circles and I believe in economic freedom, and EU is not exactly the beacon of economic freedom with all of the regulations and everything. But the whole concept as this pan-Europa is great, and I strongly believe in that. And going back to your question, why we choose, because there are no alternatives. Because when I was younger, I always thought that Ukraine should have its own way, kind of like that we should be independent from both Russia, European Union, NATO, and everything. We should be something more like Switzerland. But the problem with that idea, it's quite small and big in the same time, because, being Switzerland is great when you surrounded with great European guys and you live high on a big mountain, basically secure. But with Ukraine being on the edge of 2 civilizations, I would say East and West, unfortunately, it's we just need to choose. It's impossible. It's either we should be so strong that no one will attack us at any point of time. But I think we lost that opportunity the day we gave up our nuclear weapons, and now we just. And it's kind of, Russians used to say a lot about, Western and NATO expansion and all of that NATO, this war is NATO's fault. I don't want to sound, just say something weird that would be, cut out of the context, or by some people who wish me bad things. But the Western influence was here, of course, and the West done a few bad things, and one of them is actually making us give up our nuclear weapons and destroying our army. Basically, they done a lot to that in terms of the missiles that Russians are sending right now back to us, that we gave up to them, that we destroyed the part of them. In terms of the planes, the strategic bombers that US specifically made us destroy and give back to Russia. And of course, there's the nuclear weapons, because, there are a lot of speculations on that about the Budapest Memorandum and everything. And some people saying that Ukraine was too poor to have them. But and that's like Russia had the control. Yeah, that's all of that is partially true. But of course, we could have at least had some small amount of those weapons just to make sure that no one would have these ideas of invading us. But the best is the best. and we live today, and now we have what we have. So, and going back to your question, why Europe? I mean, it's just right. Europe and in general the West, it has its own issues right now, of course. But I would always choose freedom over these fake promises about security, and that's basically what Russia is. And when I watched Tucker Carlson interview with Putin and him visiting Russia and like showing this majestic Moscow. Yeah, Moscow is nice and St. Petersburg is nice, but what about the rest of Russia? It's a sinkhole. If you look at the videos, you just could open just a random Russian city via Google Maps or something like that and choose a random spot, and what you will see will be just terrible. And I don't want that future for us. I want Ukraine to develop, to be a free country among other free countries, and of course having our own issues, but fighting them. And that's why Europe looks much, much better for us. And Europe is about the choice, and NATO is about the choice, and Russia was always not about the choice. Russia was always about being dragged into something with no ability to come out of that.
Okay, let's get a bit controversial here. What do Russians think about Ukraine? Educate us a bit on this.
I mean, I'm no Russian, so it would be hard, but from what I know, because I actually worked with some projects which basically try to get some data from Russia, actual data, not this fake one that Russia is, just making up, but just like calling people, trying to get the info, what they actually think about the war and everything, because, Russian opposition and some Western leaders like to say that it's Putin's war, Putin's aggression, but I don't agree on that. A lot of Russians support this war. It's not Putin who, is sending missiles. It's not Putin who is killing, raping people. And I mean, being a soldier is not always about the choice, but doing what Russians did and still continue to do it is about the choice. I've been to Bucha. I've been to Irpin just after the cities were liberated by Ukrainian forces, and what I saw, it just beyond, it's just something that I think that was the point of no return, because when I was younger and even just before the war, I always tried to be a pacifist, I would say, in a way, and maybe not the pacifist, but trying to, find the best in the people, believing that all people are the same. And I still actually believe in that. But the problem is that, we still live in the societies, and all of that generations of trauma, generations of manipulation and everything, they create who we are. And with Russia, it was... it was Soviet Union. Before that, it was Russian Empire with basically slavery and everything. And that's why they behave like that, I think. And I never saw even now, with Kursk offensive, you could see what's going on in there and how Ukrainians are speaking with people. And we have a lot of reasons, to hate every single Russian. But still, our soldiers are behaving normally. I would say they giving the food to elderly, and they being just humans. And what Russians did here and in Mariupol and in other cities, it's not human at all. And I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, we could speculate about the historical reasons, etc. Maybe it's that, but I think I will never forgive Russians for what they did here in Ukraine, and that's something. And in the first place, they at least need to ask for forgiveness, and that's not something that they are planning to do, from what I see. And I don't think that they would ever do that. And that's a huge tragedy of this war, because with Second World War, Germany being basically invaded back by allies and destroyed, and allies winning the war. it created the opportunity to re-educate Germans. And with this war, I don't think we will have an opportunity like that, because just simply because Russia has nukes, and no one is willing to, go to Moscow and put a Ukrainian flag on top of Moscow, or American flag, or whatever, the new flag of Free Russia, you name it. So, and I don't think that Russians will change because of that. They will not realize what they done wrong, because, they still cheer in this war. On a daily basis, you could see some marches in Moscow. I just saw it like a week ago, some Orthodox march, and they've been like saying that, yeah, we're Russians, blah, 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 etc. And on the contrary, you don't see the anti-war rallies so much. So, and that's a huge tragedy of this war. And that's why I huge believer in the idea that Ukraine should be in NATO, or should be in NATO, because otherwise, this war gonna happen again, no matter how this part of this war will end. Because I'm the realist, and I don't think that it will end with us getting back 1991 borders. And even if so, it doesn't mean that Russia will not invade in 5-10 years, just simply because Russians believe that we are bad people, that all Ukrainians are Nazis, and all of the bullshit that Russian propaganda been cultivating in Russia since at least 2008. And if we look back into history, even earlier, this hatred towards Ukrainians, and a lot of Russians just simply not believing that we exist as a different nation, as the people who want to have their separate way.
Okay. Changing the topic a bit, going back to the experiences. War for Greeks and Europeans can seem like something far away. Do you want to share an experience to basically communicate what is war? When you went to Avdiivka, what experience did you have?
The war is hell in general. I don't think that there is anything good in war. We could glorify it. We could watch the movies about, the Second World War, our grandparents fighting it with, the courage and glory. But in fact, war is death, it's suffering, and it's just simply terrible, because you live seeing every day how people die. You see the people die. And you just, a part of you, I think the best part of you is just dying with all of that. Because I've seen a lot of stuff. Prior to the war, I have no the experience of, seeing dead people, or like seeing some blood a lot. But since day one of me working in Avdiivka area, I saw, dead people. I was putting them into the packs. I saw the people, losing their legs, arms, all of that. And it's simply terrible seeing all of that suffering. So there's nothing good about the war. And I don't know, people, in the age when we live, playing Call of Duty and all of that, it's all fun until you see, I don't know, your friend being destroyed to the small parts and all of that. And the war is hell. It's all. I don't see anything good in war. And who is saying that there is something? It's I think just stupid, or never been on the actual battlefield, because it was my experience, which was quite limited. I would say that I saw enough. But if you take the people, who the infantry, who are, I don't know, I think they just simply some superhumans, because sitting, in the trench and repelling the attacks, or going into the attacks, it's just it just amazed me how our brave soldiers are doing that. And it's completely different experience, because I'm just the driver who is going there and back. Of course, I see a lot of blood and suffering and all of that. But when you have your friends sitting in the trenches and you see them dying one by one, and all of that, it's just, it could just simply make you crazy. So that's what war is about. It's just about death and suffering on both sides, and I don't know what else to say. It's nothing good in that.
Yeah, and does war change you? How does it affect you?
It's hard to tell, because it's still happening, and I think I'll see the effects the years after it will end. It's definitely changed me because when I said the war is hell and there is nothing good, but there are some things that the war could speed up, especially as in terms of friendship, because the friendships I got being on the front line, it's something different than you have in your regular life, because you trust those people with your life and the decisions they make, and you become friends much faster for the friendship to form in civilian lives. In civilian life that will take 10 years. During the war it could take 1 month and you will be best friends. So but in terms of personal effects, of course it changed me, because when you live, what we talked about earlier about the bubble, when you live in this bubble, seeing all the good stuff, traveling the world, just enjoying being in Greece, I don't know, being in Athens, going to the beach and just living your best life. I also had that, but now I have an opposite, and it of course leaves a lot of scars in you, especially when you work on the front line in a medical team. You see the death every day, and your brain simply changes in the way that you try, and in terms of compassion and everything, you just switching that off, because if you're gonna be living through every single death, you just will become crazy, and you just switching and you're doing your work, that you need to get the wounded guy to the hospital as quickly as you can so he could survive, or you need to get that body of the soldier back to his family so they could have the proper funeral. You just switch into that. But there have been a few situations when it was just simply hard to work with the emotions and to switch and to not think. And one of that specifically, what I could remember, that when we were delivered the body of the young guy, and usually when we have the bodies, it's either the body itself and we go to the position, we take it to the back, or it's already in the back and we just transport it. But that time they deliver, and we don't see the documents, we don't see the faces if it's closed in the back. But that time the guys actually gave me the documents and of that young guy. And what I saw is that he was born in 2004. And when they gave me this bag, it weighed 20 kilos. And I was like, what's wrong? And they said that's everything that was left of him, because the tank shot directly into the place they were hiding. And that specific story actually got me, because my younger brother was born in 2004, and I was like, oh my God, this just, young kids, and he volunteered, he went himself to the war just to help his country, now he's dead, and stories like that, it's hard to live with that.
Okay, well, difficult topic. So I have another question for you, Mykhailo. You mentioned earlier that Russia has nukes, so they're not going to lose. But from your perspective, what needs to happen for Ukraine to win? What does Ukraine need to have?
To answer that question, I think we should define what victory is. Because when the war started, and even now, it's hard for me to see the end of this war, because I personally, I don't know what would be the victory for us. Whether it would be getting back all of the territories, maybe. For some people, it's getting back to the borders pre-2022 invasion. For some, it's getting back to the borders before 2014 invasion. For some, it's, rolling the tanks into Moscow. So it's hard to define what victory is, but, what changed the general perspective and I would say the general vibe here in Ukraine, it was the counteroffensive last summer in 2023. Because before that, we've been just... when the war started, it was hard to tell what's going to happen because, it's Russia, full-scale invasion. Everyone was just what should we do? But in that specific moment, what I like about Ukrainian society, that in the times of the most danger or in the times of the most historical events, we could come up as one, and people just started doing something. It's just like, okay, I'm not in the military. I will deliver the trucks, or I'll cook some food for the soldiers. And the whole country started working as one, or I would say as one entity, trying to repeal Russian invasion. Because I remember the first days, the first months, the first weeks, it was hard to tell whether Russians going to be in Lviv in 2 days or what's going to happen. But people just started doing what they could do, and that's how we repealed the invasion. And I'm sitting right now in the Kyiv. I'm actually sitting near the mall that was hit by the ballistic missiles in the first weeks, and now it's a lot of cars parked in here. People just go in there to have some McDonald's, watch some movies, and it's amazing that we actually did it and Russians are not in Kyiv, because, in first days, everyone thought that Russia was going to conquer the Kyiv, even like a lot of Ukrainians thought that they're going to do that. But what Ukrainians did is that even knowing that we might not win this, we were still, we just decided to fight and see what's going to happen. So what should happen for us to win? I think we already are not in the worst position right now comparing to even 2022. The biggest problem right now is, of course, people, because Ukraine is smaller than Russia. That's the biggest issue right now. And all of the gains Russia got after 2022 were only thanks to the amount of people they had. I've been on the positions when Russians started their, this mid-grinder tactics, just sending hundreds of people and seeing what's going to happen. And I talked with my friends who said, we've been trying to save that position, but they were coming, and we were killing them, and nothing happened. They still continue to come. And even if you look into the recent data by, I think it was Wall Street Journal, I actually saw it just yesterday, in terms of the amount of, the death toll of this war on Russian side and Ukrainian. So you could see that what they posted, I think it was 480,000 for Ukraine and 600,000 for Russia. But I don't remember the exact numbers. But what's interesting in that is the amount of people who actually died. And in Ukraine, it was 80,000. As for the data in Russia, it was 200,000. So that's the difference in terms of how we care about our people. Of course, Russia could manipulate that, we're drafting people from the streets, and we have our issues. Of course, it depends from battalion to battalion, from brigade to brigade, from commanders. Some of them could be, more reckless, I would say. Some others could be, more willing to care about their people. But generally speaking, we care about our people and we're trying to save them. And that's why we have given up the land, but willing to, withdraw, but save the people. And for Russians, for what we saw, and there are tons of evidence of that they don't care. They just send the people, and with no matter what, they need to capture that town or whatever. So that's the difference. But I went too far away from your question. in terms of the victory. We need people, of course, but that's our internal problem. I'm not the proponent of, of asking, NATO troops in Ukraine, of course not. But what we need is, especially from the West, is the strategy, because it's been almost 3 years. We saw the West willing to help us, but there is no strategy at all. We just get in some weapons, some ammo, sometimes far behind the so-called schedule when we needed to get it, as with F-16, as with, HIMARS, as with TACMS, with everything. We ask for that, and then 2 years after we get it when it doesn't make sense anymore. And now, if you look into the recent things that right now we're asking for the West to allow us to strike deep into Russia. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're thinking. I think in the end of the day, we will get this permission to do so. But the problem is that Russia already took all of the airplanes, the airfields. They just moved them deeper in the territory of Russia, where we cannot get them with the weapons we have. So that's the problem.
May I ask you, is there resentment from the Ukrainian side against the West and Europe and the USA for not allowing long-range strikes?
It's hard to tell because, there are so many people and so many opinions. Of course, a lot of people are angry because, we are paying with our lives for the time we get those weapons. I mean, if we would have got what we asked during the 2023 counteroffensive, I think it would be everything would look completely different right now. But we got the half, and we were asked to do that counteroffensive, and of course we failed. And now, oh my God, Ukrainians are bad. They don't know how to fight. Yeah, of course we don't know how to fight if you're not giving us what we need to just go directly to the very well fortified Russian positions and be destroyed with the helicopters or with the air superiority, because we don't have anything to shoot them down. Yeah, that's the problem. And now it's the same, with Avdiivka, people, I heard a lot of people saying, oh, you lost Avdiivka, Ukraine is losing the war. Yeah, we lost Avdiivka because we haven't been getting the weapons from the US for more than half a year. Of course, because we saw that, you promised to support us as long as it takes, but then for half a year, you're just not giving us anything. And we will lose some cities because we don't have enough of ammunition, because we're fighting one of the strongest army in the world and one of the, actually the biggest country in the world, and the country that has much more population than us. Yes, it's hard, guys. And I think that's the general opinion of Ukrainians. I don't think that, we're just angry. Because it's already good that we are getting this assistance, because without that, everyone understands that we will just lose, simply because we're just much smaller country with smaller economy, with less population and all. But it's more about being honest, with ourselves and with each other, because if you're saying that you're supporting us, then please support us. And doing everything, in half, it's not an actual support. That's we're just asking the guys, just give us the strategy and tell us whether you're gonna support us enough not to lose, or are you actually into us winning this war? Because a year ago, I would say that we had everything to actually win this war in the terms that will satisfy Ukrainians. Now it's harder to tell because, people are just tired. We don't have enough soldiers, and it's been 2 years. It's been almost 3 years. It's hard for everyone.
So what needs to happen for Ukraine to win is basically for the West to decide on the strategy.
Yeah, to decide whether we are fighting and whether we are planning to win, or whether we just getting what we have right now and that's enough, and let's finish it with the lines we have right now. Just to be frank, because no one is saying to us, yeah, guys, we are not planning actually to go to Crimea or something like that. No one is saying that, but you could feel that, and you could see that the US, first of all, they are not probably interested in letting us win.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the value of honesty, and you said that if you say that you support us, then do support us. And I want to talk about, very briefly, about Poland and Romania, who are one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine. They can prove it. They pay a lot of money. They give a lot of assistance. There's a lot of gratitude for this. But at the same time, when an object, a weapon enters their airspace, they don't take it down. What's your criticism on it?
Yeah, in a few words, I mean, it's hard because all of the questions and all of the topics we talk about, they, each of them require at least 10 books to say everything. So, and I mean, with this specific issue, I mean, of course, as I said it before, we're grateful for everyone who is willing to help us, especially almost 3 years into this war. And I mean, the problem with rockets, drones, etc., flying into the let's not talk about specifically about Romania or Poland, although they are the closest NATO countries to us and the biggest NATO countries to us. The problem, as I see it, with that is that those drones and those rockets are flying there for a reason. They're not just randomly deciding to go into the NATO airspace and come back.
I mean, what would happen if they were just shot down? What would happen?
Yeah, that's the point. Nothing would happen. But Putin is testing the West, and I think the current I don't know whether it's the current administration in the US or it's just the more broad American policy towards the war, towards NATO and everything, not to escalate too much. Because I'm pretty sure that's part of that policy. Let's guys, I mean, it's just a small rocket. It will fly into our territory, but then it will fly back. Let's not shoot it because if we will shoot it, I mean, all of us, we understand that nothing would happen. Russia will not send the nukes because why? Because Poland shot down the rocket that Russia sent into the Polish territory. Of course not. But, they just decided, let's not escalate, let them fly. If it's 10, 15 kilometers, it's fine. They will fly back.
But you know what? I don't understand. If you throw a rock at me and I take it down with my hand, would I annoy you? Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason. But, with that moves Putin and Russia in general, they're testing the lines of, and they're expanding these red lines. Where red lines became a joke in Ukraine in terms of Russian red lines, but Western red lines are also becoming a joke because, what happened in Ukraine happened not in one day and not in 10 years or something. It was it's the whole process of Russia testing the limits of the West with Georgia, with Moldova, even inside of Russia, just destroying the Chechen independence, let's say it. But they've been testing what's the Western reaction would be. And when nothing happened in Georgia, and then specifically when nothing happened when Russia tried and seized Crimea, I think that was the moment when they started planning for the full-scale invasion, because they saw that nothing would happen. The West doesn't care. We could just annex all of Ukraine. Why to do that? And now with a lot of people are skeptical about Russia actually attacking NATO countries because they say that. It's NATO, Russia never do that. But that's exactly what they say about they said about Ukraine.
But sorry to interrupt you. I'm not so much worried about NATO because maybe they will try to intervene, just bully a little bit, test their limit. But then, eventually, we are NATO, I guess. But I'm wondering, actually, what I'm afraid most of all is Georgia. Let's say, that something happens and now there's a ceasefire and the situation remains as is. What obstacle is there for Russia to invade Georgia? Zero.
But I think what Russia did in Georgia was actually much smarter than simply invading it because, as you might know, the current government in Georgia is totally pro-Russian. And that's exactly what they could have achieved somehow in Ukraine, but just it was too long for Putin to do with this soft power. And I don't think they need to invade Georgia, because Georgia is totally under Russian influence and they like it as it is. They don't need to, start another war. They don't need to have all of the sanctions, etc. They just control Georgia with just simply with a political influence. And Georgia is not such a big country, and that's why it makes them easier. But, going back to the NATO thing and about the rockets and everything, just think about that. Russia could try to go all in. And in all in, I mean, they don't need to do a lot. They could simply invade, for example, Lithuania. They could take Suwalki corridor. They could invade all of the Baltics. And I think they have the power, if there would be no reaction from the NATO, just sending US troops and everything and starting basically the Third World War. If there will be no reaction from NATO, and that might happen, just they will decide to use the same tactics as they use right now with the rockets. There's it's just a few countries. But if they're going to be successful in invading, even they could just go in and go back. But if they're going to do that, it will show the world that Article 5 is not working. And the day they would do that, of course, it's, it's a huge stakes, because the West could actually react and send the troops and start killing Russians in there. But if the reaction would be small, or there will be no reaction at all, it would be the end of NATO. Because the NATO exists only because of Article 5. Let's be clear with each other. Without that, what's the point of NATO? And the day they do that successfully, and it would be the day of NATO collapse, and it would be the day when the whole world order will collapse. Because without NATO, the world will just be in actual chaos, and God knows what's going to happen next. And I'm thinking about that. Of course, it's the probability of such event is probably small, but if Putin will decide to do that, and I think he's crazy enough to try to do that, it would be really interesting.
How do you view Greece's assistance to Ukraine's war effort? How is Greece viewed from Ukrainians?
It's hard to tell. I think it's more or less neutral, because, you guys have a lot of, the Soviet stockpiles, Russian stockpiles, I would say them Soviet types of weapons. And as far as I know, we got some of it in exchange of you getting some newer equipment from the West. But generally, it's more or less neutral, because we understand that you guys have your own issues and you need to have a decent military to for your own protection, just in case. So it's with Greece, I would say it's more or less neutral. I heard some bad opinions, I heard some good opinions, but generally it's just neutral. You guys are not helping us as Lithuania or Baltic countries or as Poland, but you live further away and you care less about this conflict, I think, and that's natural. So,
how would you group Greece? For example, there is this part of this group of European countries like the Baltics or Poland, Romania. Then you have Germany, you have Britain, you have France, but also Spain, Italy. You have also Hungary, which directly supports. So, where would you group Greece?
Of course, there is this list, a list, I would say, with the Great Britain, with Baltics, with Poland. Then we have just big economies that help us a lot. France, Germany. We have also. We also got a lot of, as far as I know, we got a lot of assistance from Italy, for example. But it's also, the big economies, big countries in Europe. We got some assistance from Spain with the tanks and everything. And I think with Greece it's just somewhere in the middle of maybe if we take all of the Europe, it would be lower middle. because there are a lot of European countries that are just neighboring us and helping us. But there is, as you mentioned, there is Hungary, which neighboring us, but is completely hostile to Ukraine. So I think Greece is just just neutral. I wouldn't say it's like in top of the countries in terms of the help, but I might be wrong because I haven't heard a lot about Greece help. I know that there's been some, but I don't operate the exact numbers to have some specific opinion on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Greece helps us more than I think, so it would be more than a neutral country. But from just my personal perspective and what I saw, it's just, simply neutral somewhere. I mean, neutral good, because, of course, you guys in NATO, you support our territorial integrity and everything. But, people know more about Turkey simply because they produce drones and they build ships for us. But, Turkey in the same times is also having negotiations with Putin and all of that. So Turkey is, like a chaotic evil, I would say, that helps us, but also in the same time trying to be, this like peacekeeping force and trying to be friends with both Russia and Ukraine. So it's hard to tell. And with Greece, you guys in NATO, I would say more geopolitically speaking, pro-Ukraine, but in terms of help, as I said, I don't know much about.
Last question. How do you view your life prospects as of now? How do you plan your life in Ukraine? And I
would say I don't plan it. It's hard to plan, when my planning ended on February 24th, 2022. But there are, of course, some things. For example, right now I'm actually signing up the contract with a regular army unit. So I will no longer be in Hospitallers. It was fun to be a pirate, I would say. But now I'm going to the other side, and I'll be in the regular army unit doing more or less the same what I was doing in Hospitallers, working in the medical sphere. But just generally about the plans, it's hard to tell. We just, it's still the survival mode. Although that's what a lot of, Western people don't understand, especially Americans, when they, they have these photos like of Kiev nightlife that like the war is fake in Ukraine. That's how you know that that person knows nothing about the modern warfare and about the modern war. So although the life is more or less, normal, I would say, except of occasional, airstrikes and explosions and hiding and getting your windows destroyed and going to the deployments. Life is more or less normal, but still it's, it's still the survival mode. We're just all waiting for this war to end in one way or another. And by that, I mean, it's either some great victory or the end that will satisfy us and will just give us the time to rest a little bit and prepare to the next war with Russia. Because I'm pretty sure that's actually what's going to happen. And that's all for planning. We're just like trying to survive, not to die, and somehow have our normal lives in this war, and to trying to enjoy the life. Because on the contrary to the first half year of the full-scale invasion, maybe for the first year of the full-scale invasion, now we are more or less back to the normality in terms of. Because on the beginning, the only thing we've been thinking is just to repel Russians, and we're like, I forget that I have, the normal civilian life. I was like spending all of my savings to buy cars for my friends, to buy drones and everything. And now it's been 3 years. So now we know that we need to think about also our normal lives in terms of paying utilities, paying for the rent and all of that stuff. It's got back from us, so we still need to somehow what I call war-life balance to have it. So that's all. I'm just trying to live to the day when this is gonna end somehow, and then we will be preparing for the next war and trying to figure out how to do it the way that our kids will not participate in it. Because, on the first interviews, when the war started, I was saying that the only way for us to end this war is of course victory, getting back 1991 borders, and having being a part of NATO, or having any other kind of assurances that Russia will not attack us anymore. Because the last thing I want is for my kids to fight in this war. I mean, in the other war with Russia. And now it's the more time passes, the less likely it becomes. So probably my kids will fight in the war with Russia, but we were still trying to do everything we could, so they will not need to do that.
Okay. Lastly, how can we donate to the Hospitallers Battalion?
Directly on the website. You could also donate to Come Back Alive, which is, I think, the biggest fund that buying and supplying the army right now. Or you could support Hospitallers. Just open the Hospitallers website, and you will have the IBAN and all of the other stuff where you could donate.
Okay. Perfect. Mykhailo, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.